Outdoor adventures offer excitement and challenge, but they can also be deadly. In this video, we'll look at 5 more real stories of the worst deaths in the history of outdoor adventures. These tragic events remind us of the dangers that come with pushing our limits in nature. It was August 2011, in the remote wilderness near Termalny, a village in eastern Siberia. Olga Moskalyova, a 19-year-old trainee psychologist, went on a fishing trip with her stepfather, Igor Siganenkov. The pair planned for a peaceful day by the river, enjoying the natural beauty of the area. Olga was a vibrant young woman who had recently graduated from music school and earned her driver's license. She was described as warm, cheerful, and full of life. Her mother, Tatiana, spoke fondly of her bright spirit and her dreams for the future, which included plans with her boyfriend, Stepan. As they fished, their calm day turned into a nightmare when a mother brown bear, followed by her 3 cubs, attacked them. The bear first targeted Igor, overpowering him with incredible force. The attack was so severe that it caused fatal injuries almost instantly. Olga, terrified, attempted to escape. She managed to run about 70 yards before the bear caught up to her. The animal dragged her down, inflicting severe injuries. Desperate and in pain, Olga managed to call her mother on her mobile phone. "Mom, the bear is attacking me. It hurts so much. Please help," Olga cried. At first, Tatiana thought it was a cruel prank, but the growls and sounds of the attack coming through the phone made her realize it was all too real. "I was in complete shock," Tatiana later said. Unaware of Igor's fate, Tatiana tried calling him but received no response. She then frantically alerted local authorities and Igor's brother, Andrei, begging them to reach the river as quickly as possible. In a second call to her mother, Olga's voice was weaker. She explained that the bear had returned with her cubs. "Mom, they're here again. They're hurting me," she said, her fear evident. Tatiana was powerless to help, forced to listen as her daughter faced the unthinkable. Olga managed to make one last call almost an hour later. Her voice had grown faint and she seemed to accept what was happening. "Mom, it doesn't hurt anymore. Please forgive me for everything. I love you so much," she said. The call ended shortly after, leaving Tatiana heartbroken. When Andrei and the police arrived about 30 minutes later, they found the bear still near Igor's body. Olga's lifeless body was discovered nearby, showing the severity of the attack. To ensure the bears wouldn't harm anyone else, hunters were dispatched to track and kill the mother bear and her cubs. The incident left the small community of Termalny in shock. Although bear attacks were rare, they had been occurring more often as animals ventured closer to human settlements in search of food. The tragedy underscored the risks of entering remote wilderness areas without proper precautions. Tatiana, devastated by the loss of her daughter, spoke about Olga's personality and dreams. "She was always so cheerful and full of life," Tatiana said. Olga's sudden and tragic death was a profound loss for her family and friends, who remembered her as a kind, promising young woman with a bright future ahead of her. The horrifying event became a reminder of the dangers of wildlife encounters in remote areas. While Olga and Igor's intention was to enjoy a day of peace and connection with nature, their story remains a warning about the unpredictable and often dangerous relationship between humans and wild animals. It was January 19, 1973, when a group of mountaineers began an ambitious journey to climb Mount Aconcagua, the tallest peak in the Western Hemisphere at 22,840 feet. The expedition was organized by Carmi Defoe, leader of a climbing club in Oregon. Among the team were Janet Johnson, a teacher in her 30s known for her climbing achievements, and John Cooper, a NASA engineer. Despite their high hopes, the climb ended in tragedy and lingering mysteries. Janet Johnson was an accomplished mountaineer who had summited all peaks over 14,000 feet in Colorado. She had taken a year off from teaching to pursue her dream of climbing Aconcagua. Janet was meticulous, labeling all her gear, including her cherished Nikomat camera, which she intended to use to document the climb. John Cooper joined the team later in the planning stages. Other members included psychiatrist Jim Petrosky, physician Bill Eubank, farmer Arnold McMillan, police officer Bill Zeller, and student John Shelton. The team was guided by Miguel Alfonso, a skilled Argentine climber. Their chosen route was the challenging Polish Glacier, known for its difficulty and dangers. The expedition faced challenges early on. Bill Eubank became ill before they reached base camp. At the camp, Roberto Bustos, who managed the area, noticed the group seemed inexperienced despite their new equipment. He also observed tension among the team, with Carmi enforcing a strict hierarchy. As they ascended, the group split into smaller teams. Some stayed at Camp 1, while others, including Janet and John, pushed ahead to higher camps. By the time they reached Camp 3, over 19,000 feet high, the team was struggling with exhaustion and altitude sickness. Jim Petrosky became gravely ill, forcing Miguel to escort him back to lower altitudes, leaving Janet, John, Bill, and Arnold to continue. The next day, the remaining climbers attempted to ascend the Polish glacier. Harsh weather and high altitude forced them to stop at 21,000 feet. They made a makeshift camp by carving out a shallow shelter in the ice, using space blankets for warmth as they had no tents or sleeping bags. Morning brought dire circumstances. John Cooper, weak and partially buried in snow, decided to descend to Camp 3 but never arrived. Janet, too, was unable to survive the harsh conditions. The exact details of what happened remain unclear. Bill Zeller and Arnold McMillan were the last to see Janet and John alive. When they returned to camp without the others, authorities were alerted. The survivors' accounts varied, likely due to stress and the effects of altitude. A recovery team led by Miguel later found John's body. He was missing one crampon and had severe injuries, including a wound on his stomach. His ice axe was gone, and his face appeared frozen in a state of fear. Janet's body was discovered 2 years later by another group of climbers. She too was missing a crampon and had suffered severe injuries, including facial disfigurement from prolonged exposure. A large rock had been placed on her body. Janet's death was officially attributed to a brain injury, likely from a fall, while John's was linked to head trauma. However, forensic experts raised doubts about these conclusions. Dr. Daniel Araujo, who assisted in Janet's autopsy, noted injuries that suggested foul play, including deep cuts on her face and slices on her boots, possibly from a blade. In 2020, climbers discovered Janet's Nicomat camera preserved in the ice. The film contained 24 photos, offering a glimpse into the group's journey. The last image, taken after John had turned back, showed the Andes' snowy peaks. These photos provided some insight into Janet's final moments but left many questions unanswered. The discovery of the camera reignited interest in the case. Why were key items like ice axes missing? What caused the deep cuts on Janet's body? And why was John's expression one of terror? Whether these were tragic accidents or involved other factors remains a mystery. It was November 2, 2022, in Tierra del Fuego, Argentina. A group of 7 tourists, led by a man from Brazil, ventured into the Jimbo Cave, also known as the Ice Cave, in the Andorra Valley. This area is famous for its stunning glaciers, but also known for its dangers. The cave had been declared unsafe due to the risk of ice and rockfalls, but the group chose to ignore the warnings. Signs near the cave entrance clearly read, "Warning, do not enter." Despite this, the Brazilian man led the group toward the cave while recording the moment on his phone. One of the tourists warned him to be cautious, but he kept going. Suddenly, the ice roof cracked, and a massive block of ice, at least twice his size, fell from about 50 feet above. The ice hit the man directly on the head, and he lost his life instantly. Another tourist caught the tragic moment on video before dropping the camera and shouting for the group to leave. In panic and disbelief, the group quickly retreated and called for emergency help around 5 p.m. local time. Rescue teams had to hike 6 miles to reach the scene. When they arrived, the man was already deceased. His body was transported to Ushuaia, the southernmost city in Argentina, for an autopsy. Local officials launched an investigation to understand what happened and questioned the 6 other hikers who were present. The accident took place in Tierra del Fuego National Park, Argentina's first shoreline national park. The park is famous for its breathtaking landscapes, but also holds dangers. The Jimbo Cave in particular had been marked as unsafe due to unstable ice and rocks. Studies showed the cave was at risk of collapse, and authorities had repeatedly warned visitors to stay away. However, the cave's beauty still attracted adventurers willing to take the risk. The man, a Brazilian in his 30s, had been traveling alone in Argentina. He carried no identification, which made it harder to notify his family. His death underscores the need for visitors to follow safety warnings, especially in areas marked as hazardous. Footage of the incident spread across local media, showing the group's approach to the cave and the moment the ice collapsed. In the video, the group's shock and terror are clear as the ice hits the man, and they realize the danger of their situation. The tragedy raises several questions. What if the group had obeyed the warnings? Could the man have been saved if stricter measures were in place to block access to the cave? These thoughts linger as the investigation continues. Following the incident, local authorities emphasized the importance of respecting safety rules in national parks. They have also intensified efforts to enforce restrictions around dangerous areas like the Jimbo Cave. The park remains closed, and officials continue to stress that ignoring warnings can lead to severe consequences. The case is now being handled by Judge Javier de Gama Soler in Ushuaia. All members of the group are being questioned to provide details about what led to the accident. Investigators aim to determine whether more could have been done to prevent the tragedy and ensure that others do not make the same mistake. This incident has left a deep impact on the local community and serves as a reminder of the risks that come with exploring such areas. Natural wonders can be alluring but also unpredictable and dangerous. Visitors are urged to take safety warnings seriously and remember that these rules are there to protect lives. The death of the Brazilian tourist is a heartbreaking loss, showing the need for caution in nature. As the investigation continues, authorities hope this tragedy will be a lesson to others about the importance of respecting nature and the guidelines in place for safety. It was November 12, 2024, in Vang Vieng, Laos. Two young women from Roskilde, Denmark, 20-year-old Anne-Sophie Orkild Koyman and 21-year-old Freya Venervald Sorensen, were on a backpacking trip across Southeast Asia. This journey was meant to be an unforgettable adventure. They had recently arrived in Vang Vieng and booked a stay at Nana Backpackers Hostel. That evening, they enjoyed drinks at the hostel bar before visiting other local spots, unaware this night would be their last. Vang Vieng, known for its party scene and breathtaking scenery, is a favorite destination for travelers. Cheap accommodations and readily available alcohol attract backpackers from around the world. It is part of the Banana Pancake Trail, a well-known route through Southeast Asia. After returning to their room around midnight, Anne-Sophie and Freya messaged a friend the next morning, reporting severe illness, including vomiting blood. This was a clear indication of a serious issue. When the women failed to show up for a planned meeting, their friend grew alarmed and posted an urgent online message to warn other travelers. By 6 p.m. on November 13th, hostel staff found Anne-Sophie and Freya unconscious in their bathroom. They were rushed to a hospital in Vang Vieng and later transferred to a larger facility in Vientiane. Despite medical efforts, both women passed away in the early hours of November 14th. Medical authorities suspected methanol poisoning as the cause. Methanol is a toxic chemical sometimes used in counterfeit alcohol due to its low cost. Unlike ethanol, which is safe for consumption in moderation, methanol is extremely dangerous. Even a small amount can be fatal, causing symptoms like nausea, vomiting, difficulty breathing, and vision problems. In severe cases, it leads to organ failure, blindness, or death. Tragically, Anne-Sophie and Freya were not the only victims of methanol poisoning in Vang Vieng that week. 3 other tourists also died after consuming tainted alcohol. James Lewis Hudson, a 57-year-old American, was found lifeless in his room at the same hostel on November 13th. 2 Australian teenagers, 19-year-olds Bianca Jones and Holly Bowles, also lost their lives. Another victim, British traveler Simone White, passed away in a Thai hospital after consuming alcohol in Vang Vieng. The manager of Nana Backpackers Hostel denied any knowledge of the issue, claiming that over 100 other guests had consumed drinks that night without problems. However, the hostel was shut down pending an investigation. Local authorities detained several staff members, including the manager, for questioning. The governor of Vang Vieng, Bonchon Malavong, visited the hostel and promised a thorough investigation to hold those responsible accountable. Methanol poisoning is a recurring issue in Southeast Asia, where unregulated alcohol production often leads to such incidents. According to Doctors Without Borders, thousands of cases occur in the region annually. The families of the victims called for action to prevent further tragedies. Bianca Jones's father urged the Laos government to investigate thoroughly, while Freya's father, Karsten Sorensen, emphasized raising awareness about methanol poisoning to protect other travelers. Investigators later traced the contaminated alcohol to a poorly maintained factory near Vientiane. The Laos Ministry of Health's Department of Food and Drugs ordered the factory's closure after discovering significant contamination. The factory owner was arrested, and locals reported that the facility had previously been inspected but remained operational until this incident. Despite these actions, the tragedy shed light on the widespread issue of unregulated alcohol in Southeast Asia. Governments, including those of the US and UK, have issued warnings to travelers about the risks associated with consuming alcohol in the region. Unfortunately, the lack of enforcement allows unsafe practices to continue. Anne Sophie and Freya's deaths, along with those of the other tourists, underscore the dangers of counterfeit alcohol. Questions linger. Could stricter safety measures at the hostel have prevented this? Could earlier action against the factory have saved lives? What if travelers were better informed about these risks? This devastating story has left a deep impact on the victims' loved ones and the wider community. As investigations proceed, there is hope that increased awareness and stricter regulations will help protect travelers in the future. It was November 11, 2023. On this day, 33-year-old Army veteran Will Onion was hiking in Snowdonia, North Wales. He was part of a group of 6 on a charity hike to raise funds for veterans. The date was significant. It was Armistice Day, a meaningful day for Will, who had served in Afghanistan and the Falkland Islands. The group began their journey from an Airbnb, taking a shuttle bus to Snowdon's base. They chose the Pig Track, a popular yet challenging path to the summit. Will, an experienced hiker and mountaineer, was known for his confidence and safety awareness. He brought a drone to capture the stunning mountain scenery. By mid-morning, they reached the Crib Goch Ridge, a notorious part of the trail with steep drops and treacherous terrain. Earlier in the hike, Will had slipped, injuring his knee and finger. However, he treated the injuries himself and continued. As the group moved along the ridge, mist began to obscure their view. Despite worsening conditions, Will took out his drone to film, but initially put it away due to low visibility. Later, he decided to try again. As he flew the drone, it lost signal and crashed onto a steep slope below. Determined to retrieve it, Will climbed down the rocky slope. His friends grew concerned as they watched him carefully make his way down. Then suddenly, he lost his footing. Sarah Edwards, one of the hikers, saw him slide down the slope on his back. Rocks tumbled as he disappeared from view. The group panicked. Sarah called emergency services at 11 a.m., reporting the fall. Another hiker, Daniel Hellier, mentioned seeing Will step over a gap before slipping. Everyone feared the worst as they waited for help. Emergency responders, including police, an air ambulance, and mountain rescue teams, arrived quickly. They located Will on the north face of Crib Goch, about 50 meters or 160 feet below. Sadly, despite their efforts, Will was pronounced dead at the scene. He had sustained severe injuries from the fall. An inquest in June 2024 ruled his death accidental. Dr. Brian Rogers, a home office pathologist, confirmed Will died from multiple injuries. Senior coroner Kate Robertson noted the significance of the day, Armistice Day, and that Will had passed doing something he loved in a place he cherished. Will's military service spanned 7 years in the Royal Signals, with deployments to Afghanistan and the Falkland Islands. After leaving the Army, he moved to Bournemouth with his partner, Nickel Martin, and started a hiking business. He was passionate about fitness and charity, organizing events to support veterans. He had recently completed a scouting trip to Mount Everest and planned to return in March. His father, Alistair Onion, expressed pride and grief, saying, "He passed at 11 a.m. on the 11th day of the 11th month, a soldier through and through. He was a son that no man could be prouder of. He was happy, loved, and admired by everyone who met him." Will's death was a heartbreaking loss for his family, friends, and community. Known for his kindness and positivity, his memory continues to inspire those who knew him. His family set up a fundraiser to cover funeral costs and support causes close to Will's heart. Will's story raises lingering questions. What if the drone hadn't fallen? What if the weather had been better? What if he hadn't slipped earlier in the hike? While these thoughts remain, it's clear that Will lived fully, pursuing what he loved and surrounded by those who cared for him. His legacy endures through the lives he touched, his charity work, and the memories he left behind.